Caitlin Clark got a little get back at Kelsey Plum.
She was taking a shot, could not help but to drag Caitlin Clark through the glass as she did it.
0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
The WNBA is on a hot streak. They're finally turning.
What happened just moments ago has sent shockwaves across the entire WNBA. And somewhere right now, Kelsey Plum is probably feeling absolutely miserable because Caitlin Clark just outplayed her in the most ruthless and calculated way we've ever witnessed in women's basketball. I'm still trying to process it because this wasn't simply revenge. It was a perfect example of how to completely outclass and expose someone who tried to damage your reputation. And make no mistake, Plum didn't just come up short, she was completely overshadowed. Before we break down everything that happened, hit that like button if you're standing with Caitlin, because after hearing the full story, it's hard to imagine anyone still taking Plum's side.
For losers, and you have sore winners, and Kelsey Plum is both.
We want to blow them out. We're a lot better than them.
We're watching for the league. We're really watching for Caitlin Clark. Everyone's going to be making more because of Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark is the one bringing in the numbers.
Well, there's one.
Let's go back to where this entire situation really began. Because this wasn't some random disagreement or small dispute. It grew out of jealousy, subtle attempts to undermine someone, and one player's effort to take attention away from the biggest star the WNBA has ever seen. It all started during the WNBA All-Star Game, an event that was supposed to celebrate the league and bring everyone together. Instead, it became one of the most awkward, tension-filled moments women's basketball has experienced. At the time, players were united behind the Pay Us What You Owe Us campaign, asking the league for better salaries. And to be fair, that cause made complete sense. These players deserve fair pay. But this is where Kelsey Plum made a decision that could end up being one of the biggest mistakes of her career. During a press conference, with cameras everywhere and basketball fans watching, Plum delivered what many viewed as a subtle shot at Caitlin Clark without ever mentioning her by name.
0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
Or her actually making comments about Caitlin Clark's team not being at this meeting for the CBA.
She made a carefully chosen comment suggesting that none of the players on Team Clark were truly taking part. It was an obvious remark aimed at the league's pay discussions and player movement. The timing couldn't have been more surprising. She singled out the player who has brought more attention, revenue, and exposure to the WNBA than anyone else in the league's history, trying to portray her as focused only on herself and disconnected from the rest of the players. The message felt so obvious, so intentional, and honestly so unnecessary that even people who rarely watch basketball understood exactly what she was implying. What made it even more frustrating was the actual situation. Clark wasn't even present at the All-Star Game. She was at home recovering and dealing with her own circumstances. She had no obligation to attend or take part in public displays just to prove she supported the player's cause.
Caitlin Clark, during that whole thing about Team Clark wasn't very present for that.
To me, I thought that was a little dig at Caitlin. A lot of people definitely thought so.
Plum, she was taking a shot at Caitlin Clark's situation involving the Pay Us What You...
She has completely changed the landscape of women's basketball, bringing millions of new fans to the sport, raising its national profile, and helping make the WNBA stronger financially than ever before. Even with all of that, Plum still questioned her commitment. The level of disrespect surprised a lot of people, but what happened next was even more rewarding to watch. The backlash came immediately. Just look at Sabrina Ionescu's expression during the press conference. You could see the tension on her face as she realized what Plum's comments might lead to. Even analyst Stacey King openly criticized the decision, saying it made no sense to take aim at the league's biggest attraction. And the numbers back him up. Since Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, television ratings have climbed, merchandise sales have exploded, ticket demand has increased, and expansion fees have jumped from $50 million to $250 million in a short period. She has become the league's biggest advantage in salary discussions, yet Plum publicly questioned the player who has added the most value to the league. But this is where Caitlin Clark proved she's much more than an elite basketball player.
To say that Caitlin Clark didn't join in on the t-shirt discussion.
This week they wore t-shirts saying, making a statement, you better pay us. But instead of just leaving it at that, Kelsey Plum for LA had to take a dig at Caitlin Clark. Here she is.
The t-shirt, just United Front was determined this morning that we had a meeting for, and not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present.
She's someone who thinks several steps ahead while everyone else reacts to the moment. Rather than firing back through interviews or starting an argument online, Clark made the smartest move possible. She stayed completely silent. She allowed her success to speak for itself, continued making headlines without even playing, and waited for the perfect opportunity to answer. When that opportunity arrived, it made a huge impact. Shortly after the controversy, Clark announced another major worldwide partnership with Nike, once again showing that the biggest companies want to be connected to her brand. While Plum focused on criticizing her, Clark kept building her career. Then came the moment everyone noticed. Clark saw Plum sharing photos from a Nike event despite being sponsored by Under Armour, Nike's biggest competitor. That's when Clark left the perfectly timed comment, "Thanks for the Nike ad," sending social media into a frenzy. Major brands continue lining up to work with her, and her endorsement earnings have already reached well into 7 figures. While some veteran players are still trying to gain attention, the business world has already made its decision. Clark isn't just the future of the sport. She's already its biggest star. Since that Instagram moment, Kelsey Plum has stayed noticeably quiet, perhaps realizing she picked a battle with someone operating at a completely different level. The player she tried to portray as disconnected ended up proving that true influence doesn't require constant noise. It simply produces results that everyone can see. Clark's influence has become so massive that even one simple social media comment turns into national headlines, while Plum's efforts to stay in the spotlight receive far less attention. But this goes beyond a disagreement between two players. What we're really seeing is a larger pattern where some WNBA veterans appear uncomfortable with Caitlin Clark's rapid rise, and that strategy has not worked. Before Clark entered the league, television audiences were much smaller, media coverage was limited, and expansion fees were nowhere near today's levels. Many games were played in front of partially filled arenas with very little national attention. The WNBA struggled with ticket sales, attendance, and profitability. Then Clark arrived and everything changed. Ratings climbed, jerseys sold out, ticket demand increased, television deals grew, and expansion fees reached record numbers. Much of that momentum can be linked to her impact. Yet instead of fully embracing those gains, some veteran players have responded with quiet resentment. What they continue to overlook is that Clark's success benefits everyone. Bigger audiences create better salaries, stronger investments, and more opportunities across the league. She has become the spark the WNBA needed all along. Through every challenge, Clark has shown that she's more than an outstanding player. She understands leadership, patience, and perfect timing. She doesn't chase controversy. She turns criticism into motivation. The fans recognize it, the numbers confirm it, and the story is still being written. The biggest lesson from this entire situation isn't about one comment or one social media exchange. It's about how success changes everything around a player. Caitlin Clark has become the center of almost every major conversation in the WNBA, whether people support her or criticize her. Every game she plays attracts attention. Every interview becomes news. Every move she makes is analyzed from every angle. That's the level of influence only a handful of athletes ever reach. While others spend time responding to headlines, Clark continues to let her performances, partnerships, and growing fan base speak for themselves. That approach has allowed her to stay focused while the spotlight around her keeps getting brighter. The reality is that women's basketball is entering a completely different era. More fans are watching, more companies are investing, and more young players are dreaming about playing professionally because the sport is reaching audiences it had never reached before. That kind of growth benefits every franchise, every player, and every future generation. Whether someone agrees with Clark's popularity or not, the impact is impossible to ignore. The conversations are bigger, the expectations are higher, and the opportunities continue to grow. Instead of dividing the league, many believe the focus should now be on building together and making sure this momentum continues for years to come. For Caitlin Clark, she has shown that she doesn't need to answer every criticism with words. Time after time, she has responded by staying committed to her game and continuing to expand her influence both on and off the court. That strategy has earned respect from fans, attracted major business opportunities, and kept her at the center of the basketball world. Every season brings new challenges, but it also creates new chances to prove why so many people believe she is changing the future of the sport. If the current trend continues, this story is only getting started, and the next chapter could be even bigger than anything we've seen so far. Looking ahead, all eyes will remain on Caitlin Clark because every game she plays now carries enormous attention. Fans aren't just watching to see how many points she scores. They're watching to see how she handles pressure, responds to criticism, and continues leading one of the fastest-growing eras in women's basketball. Every performance adds another chapter to her story, and every challenge becomes another opportunity to prove why so many people consider her the biggest name in the sport today. If recent events have shown anything, it's that trying to slow her momentum hasn't worked. She continues moving forward while the conversation around her only gets louder. Whether people support her or question her, one thing is becoming harder to deny with each passing week. Caitlin Clark has changed the direction of the WNBA in ways few athletes ever change a professional league. Her impact reaches far beyond the scoreboard, influencing television audiences, business partnerships, fan interest, and the future of the game itself. As the season continues, everyone will be watching to see what happens next. One thing is certain, this story is far from finished, and Caitlin Clark remains at the center of everything happening across the basketball world.